Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sunset Station Strike Zone inside the Sunset Station Hotel and Casino, and for our continuing coverage of the WTBA World Championships on Bowl TV. I'm Jason Overstreet with you this morning for women's trios qualifying. First frame, just getting started, and you can see we'll give you a three-box look at all of the lanes here in front of us, above or below our platform position, lanes 51 through 56. On 55 and 56, it's the Netherlands and Singapore in the big box. Upper right portion of your screen, lane 53 and 54, features Macau, China, and the Philippines, while Italy and Ukraine are in the lower right on 51 and 52. You can follow along with the scoring by checking out the live scoring application on bowl.com. And once again, appreciate your being with us, and hope you enjoy the action following along your favorite teams as they pass through our cameras today. you're just joining us, we're glad to have you along here at the WTBA World Championships for the women's trios. First squad of the day in this second block of qualifying. For Team USA, Kelly Kulik, Missy Parkin, and Liz Johnson on this squad. They're off to our left at the moment. And we'll have continuing live coverage for you all day and of the medal round this evening as well. I'd like to thank our host, Sunset Station, the Station Property Casinos, for their wonderful hospitality here at the World Championships. Also the City of Henderson, a big part of making this event possible. Live streaming comes to you compliments of USBC. Bowl TV is a service of the United States Bowling Congress. I'd like to recognize our nearly 2 million USBC members out there and remind them that it's your membership that helps make Bowl TV possible. SK8 Bowling Reviews in the chat makes a very good observation that Lucas sounds different today because it's not Lucas. Jason Overstreet with you here. Lucas taking a short break this morning from his many consecutive days of live streaming early in the day here in Las Vegas. So we'll spell him, bring in the backup for this portion of the trios qualifying, which more or less speaks for itself. Again, you can follow along live scoring, which can be located on bowl.com. And then check out the three pairs here in front of us and watch the action. Of course, it is a lot of bowling before it gets to where we start seeing how those pin totals are going to add up and what it will mean in terms of who makes the medal round. If you are new to our coverage here of the World Championships and how the format works, it is 6 games, and the top pinfall, the top 4 spots in pinfall across 2 squads advance to the medal round. So the trios on this squad will get their scores in the books and then sit back and wait and see what happens the next squad to find out who advances. And we hope you will get on Facebook, Twitter, etc., and start letting folks know that we've got bowling to watch here early in the morning out in Las Vegas. For those of you interested in following Team USA this morning, they are starting on lanes 45 and 46. And it's a good start for Kelly Kulik as she is perfect through 4. just joining us, this is game one of the trios qualifying here in the second block. You can find current standings on bowl.com. Just go to the World 2013 page. Coming into today, it's Korea 1 with a pretty sizable lead, averaging 223. Chinese Taipei, Singapore, and the other Korean trio rounding out the top four. Now, we've seen before the scores go significantly higher on this medium sole pattern than what we'd seen previously on the short. So making the number put up by Korea all that more impressive, but should see scores go up here today from what they were in the previous block. Question in the chat, if one of the bowlers for Macau, China is a spinner. Yes, their anchor bowler is a spinner indeed. The other two players conventional style. if you're just joining us, we're in game one of the trios competition here, the second block of qualifying. So, fourth game out of 6. We'll have 2 different squads today. And the top 4 trio teams will advance to the medal round. We'll be showing you a 3-box with each of the teams in front of our featured pairs here, lanes 51 through 56. And you can follow along with the scores. Take a look at the exact same scoreboard that the fans here in the center are seeing. Link to that is on bowl.com, along with all the results. We'll have live coverage throughout the day and the medal round tonight. Well, we're headed towards the end of game number 1 here in this first squad of the day of the trios. Appreciate everybody joining us. I'm Jason Overstreet. Lucas Wiseman will be along later. He missed it last night. Had a really interesting middle round where teams really struggled to score in the semifinals, and it was Canada taking advantage of the situation, then putting up a really nice game in the finals to defeat Korea and take the gold. United States and Colombia taking home bronze. Mark Bupa from Canada nearly throwing a perfect game in that gold medal match. It was really a terrific scene here for all the supporters of Team Canada celebrating their gold medal. It had been quite a few years since they had taken home one at the World Championships, and it was certainly a sight to behold. You can take a look at the recorded version of the live championships here on our Bowl TV YouTube channel. Also, there is a highlight video that details what happened. Speaking of highlight videos, if you have not yet taken a look at the videos available through bowlingdigital.com, you're really missing out. Bowling Digital has put together some outstanding content, both video and still photos, as well as written stories. The whole crew from Bowling Digital is out here for the duration of the event. So in addition to all of the coverage that is available on bowl.com, certainly recommend everybody bookmark Bowling Digital to see what they've got going. Hope you'll also take a moment to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Subscribing to Bowl TV on YouTube will make sure that you get an alert and know whenever there is a new video that has been uploaded. So when the feature wrap-ups for the days are done, you'll know. When there is a live event that's available for viewing on demand, you'll know. So it's certainly worth your time. Just sign into YouTube, create an account if you don't already have one. Doesn't cost anything. Hit subscribe, and you'll be the first to know. Heading towards the 10th frame on some of our featured pairs, at least Singapore and Netherlands are in the 10th frame. Nicole Sanders in the books with a 183. 10th frame for Sherry Tan. She runs down the spare. She'll be in the 220s. None of the teams either of these teams on 55 and 56 putting up a huge game. Team USA struggling to string strikes as well after Kulik's front four, not much else going on. Liz Johnson with a couple of opens, no doubles. Missy started with a double, but then gave it right back with an open and has thrown a split in the ninth. Team USA needed to do a lot of work in order to make it back into contention for the medal round, and not really the start they were looking for. Of course, coming up tomorrow is the start of the team competition. We'll have a couple of days of team qualifying on both of the patterns. Team competition, the most prestigious event here at the World Championships, as all of these countries come here to take home the team medals. Daphne Tan now finishing things up for Singapore with her fill shot. She'll be in the 2 teens. So 2:15 for Daphne. See if it's a 624 or 634 total. $634 for Singapore, $548 for the Netherlands. Bring our other two pairs full screen now that 55 and 56 have wrapped up. Ukraine and Italy on, as well as the Philippines and Macau. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow WTBA on Twitter @WorldBowling. If you're interested in news from the United States, you can follow USBC on Twitter @USBC. World Games gold medalist Daria Kovalova up for Ukraine. 10-frame shot. She finishes with 2:15. $569 total for Ukraine that game. Philippines in the books with a 6:51. And 5:23 for Macau. So we'll wait for the players on the low end of the house to finish this game and be back in just a moment with game number 2. Underway now with game number 2 here. First squad of the day in trios. Again, this is the second block of trios, so game number 4. Rotating onto our primary featured pair, lanes 55 and 56. We have Korea along with Canada. Meanwhile, over on 53 and 54, top right portion of your screen is going to be Poland and Russia, while New Zealand and Australia are on lanes 51 and 52, the lower right portion of your screen. I'm Jason Overstreet. Thanks so much for joining us. Luke has taken a little bit of time off, but we got a new voice here on the live stream to talk with us a little bit here during this game. It is Brian O'Keefe. Brian O'Keefe is assistant coach of Team USA program and also the man who makes the International Training and Research Center back in Arlington, Texas, training home for Team USA run. Also the better half of Team USA bowler Shannon O'Keefe. Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. I wouldn't say better half in that last statement, but thanks. I appreciate that.
Well, half.
That's right. The half. The other half.
Other half.
The other white meat, I guess you could say.
So, Brian, I know you've been in town for a little bit, had a chance to check out how things are going. What have been some things that have struck you in terms of the way that these patterns are playing? I know that you spent an awful lot of time back at the training center trying to help not only Team USA, but other teams that come in to utilize the facility, prepare for scoring well on these WTBA patterns. And what has your analysis been so far?
Well, this is I got in late Friday night, so I didn't get a chance. This is the first time I've gotten to see the women bowl on the medium pattern, so it's pretty new to me. But obviously I've been following you guys and following your coverage back in the training center, so I've watched a little bit. But the short pattern I watched a couple days ago on Saturday. I watched the women play on it, and man, it looks hard. It looks really, really hard. It's about the only thing I could say about it. This pattern, the scores were really high. They're actually higher than what the guys were, so it'll be interesting to see how the girls come out and play them today. I think overall, just walking up and down the center here since I walked in, the overall scoring pace probably looks a little bit lower than it did a couple days ago for the doubles set. I could be wrong, maybe it's just the people I was looking at, but I think overall, looking at a few of the teams, looking at how Korea bowled, looking at how USA bowled, I think the scoring pace may be a little bit lower, which I would have to think can be expected. It seems like anytime you put out the same pattern over and over and over again, the lanes are going to change a little bit, so people get into their groove of how they have been playing the lanes, and if they're just slightly off, it doesn't take much to turn a 240 game into a 210 game. And not that it's a bad game, but that's where the scoring pace may drop ever so slightly, but they'll figure it out and hopefully turn the ship.
Yeah, of course, I can't see the whole center, really just the lanes in front of us, but I was expecting a much higher scoring pace there in that first game of this squad on this pattern, knowing that the short was so difficult, and what we had seen previously was that switching to this pattern, certainly you mentioned it in the doubles, had a much higher scoring pace, and at least right out of the gates it just didn't seem like that's happening here today. Maybe 3 on a pair, just making them break down a little bit differently.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, like I said, it seems like anytime you run that lane machine down there, the more times you run it time and time again, for whatever the reason, obviously, they're doing everything they normally do with getting the back ends fresh and getting them clean. But it just seems like the back part of the lane will generally start playing a little bit tighter throughout the course of the week. Whether it be a PBA event or whether it be a collegiate tournament or whatever the case may be, it just seems like the more times that lane machine runs down the lane, strips and runs them, and strips and runs them, they'll just end up playing a little bit tighter down the lane. Now, sometimes that can make the lane condition play a little easier, and other times it can make it play a little harder. So I think in this case, it's possibly not necessarily harder, just maybe a little different. And because the scoring pace was so high a couple days ago, people already might have come in with some preconceived notions as to where they're going to play. And just as well as anybody else in this game, that can get you in trouble if you already dictated what you're going to do when you walk in the center. So maybe that first game was not only trying to get off to a good start, maybe a first game jitters of the teams that are up there trying to stay up there, and the teams that know they need a big game to try and put some pressure on themselves early to come out of the gates and really start off the block well.
We'll see what happens as the day progresses on the medium pattern, but now we've seen it twice that the Team USA women have really struggled on the short. In the singles competition, did not bowl as well as one might expect, and certainly in the first squad of trios on the short pattern, Team USA did not do well. Do you have any insight as to what might be going on?
Gosh, that's like I said, it's a great question. When I got in here Friday night, late in the evening, and I was here Saturday for both the squads. And gosh, put it this way: I don't envy what Coach Rod and Coach Kim are doing right now, because the lanes look. I mean, it really just looks like you have to throw it great. It's that you're not really going to get yourself in a position or find a ball that's going to give you a heck of a lot of room on the lane to make mistakes. Hopefully you find a ball that when you do make a mistake, you're not getting 6. I think that's the biggest thing, staying out of trouble on that pattern and, bowling a clean 210 game or a clean 220, as opposed to, it just seems like because it's 33 feet, the ball's still going to change directions pretty violently if you miss left of your target for a right-hander. And then it seems like there's hang on the gutter down lane. And anytime you make the pattern 33 feet and put a little bit of hang on the gutter, I mean, that's why you see the scoring pace come down, except for, really the spinners from Chinese Taipei. It's pretty amazing what they're doing on that pattern, how their scores are, so high. But, they're technicians at what they do, and that's really their wheelhouse, is when everybody else is struggling to get to the pocket, they're just going to do the same thing and really take the lane out of play. So, in a way, obviously I'm rooting for Team USA, but in a way it's cool to see the spinners, because I'd almost say it's a lost art of the game of bowling. You go back 20 years ago, there was a heck of a lot more, both the men and female. So, you're looking at, the game's changed. I think a lot of it has to do with the lane conditions. All of the Asian countries and the European countries, they now all have the expensive lane machines that can oil every board on the lane just to whatever they want. So I think that whole, the spinner thing was really to take that lane out of play. But now that the technology's gotten bigger all over the world, I think that's a reason why you're seeing it kind of go away. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I watched the whole day, and I didn't really come away with many answers as to what they could. I mean, they're obviously great players, all of them. Just for whatever reason, the ball, whether it be a little bit of shot making, not being able to get comfortable, and then just a really, really hard lane condition. I think they're trying different things, that's for sure. I was here all day, and all 6 of them were trying different things. Liz Johnson bowled a really good set. She bowled 660, 670, and everybody else was, rated a little bit above 600 or below 600. But there's girls out here who are getting it done, shooting 650 to 700 on that pattern. So something's got to be there, but they're good enough. That team event, hopefully they're going to try a few things. I have intel on that they're going to try a few different things tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes.
We're visiting with Brian O'Keefe, assistant coach of Team USA. I'm Jason Overstreet. Appreciate your being with us here for the 2013 WTVA World Championships. This is the trios competition, second game of the day here. So game number 5 total in the 6 games that will go in the books towards determining who bowls in the middle round. Brian, this has almost seemed to be a throwback competition in some regards. You mentioned it as it relates to the spinners really having great success, but we've noticed that some of the ball choices for a lot of these teams have also been throwbacks, being perhaps that the more modern cover stocks are just reacting a little bit more violently, more difficult to control, and thereby seeing just kind of a traditional type of retro ball choices.
Yeah, I would like to think that the Koreans and the Asian countries really started that, back about, let's say a decade ago, maybe not quite a decade, maybe 6 to 8 years ago, where they were really the first ones that started bringing the older urethane balls to the tournaments to bowl on the short. And, it took maybe a beating a time or two in terms of the USA. I'm saying, no, we can get it done with the stuff that we, our higher technology, the newer modern type bowling balls. And they finally said, we just can't beat them. can't beat them with what they're doing. So yeah, everybody's kind of gotten on board with that sort of theory and that strategy entering the tournament. And when you're talking about 33 feet, it's really taking you back to those days. That's a longer pattern back in the day would be 35, 36 feet. In the short oil days, 23, 24 feet of oil was on the lane. So I think it just allows you to feel like you have a little bit of room left on the shorter pattern using the older urethane balls. Because this pattern, they're 1-2 seem like they're a little bit tight on the gutter, or a lot bit tight on the gutter. So you need to try and create some room area some way in order to let your swing kind of loosen up. So those urethane balls can tend to do it. Now conversely on this pattern, a lot of the guys are still using urethane too, which is really interesting to see. But I think some of that comes into the topography of this bowling center in itself. Between 3 and 6 on the right side, especially on a lot of these pairs, seems to have quite a bit of friction built into it. So when you can have that built-in friction between 3 and 6, those urethane balls, that's what they want. They're just going to read early, sort of pick up, and then freeze into the pocket. So even on a 30, 39-foot pattern, they can still get away with having more hold than somebody's trying to throw the modern-type bowling ball. So you're seeing, I know last night Korea, I'm pretty sure they were all using urethane on the medium pattern finals, and they've got the silver medal out of it. And I know a few of the Team USA players have been doing it. John Janowitz has been throwing an old nitro on that pattern. Looked really good. And
so Brian, what does that mean to the above average bowler, if you will, that's watching? I mean, is this idea of throwing the urethane ball for better control something that really only applies at the most elite level on a sport pattern in a particular house, or is it something that even your fairly competitive local bowler can learn something from?
Well, I just think it depends on what they bowl on. If they're bowling on a lot of house shots, I don't necessarily think urethane. You can always move left and find more oil on a house shot, so I wouldn't necessarily say that urethane is a must. But if you're a bowler at home that just bowls local tournaments, but you like to, every once in a while those tournaments are competed on a sport shot type pattern, and they put out a short pattern, you could definitely see the benefits of it pretty quick. You'll watch other people throwing it, and you'll wish you were too. But so I think it's really that's a tough question to answer, just because it depends on the playing field that they're bowling on. Most house shots, I don't think too many people, maybe some seniors out there with, slower ball speed type players might be able to use some urethane stuff, but for the most part, the modern day balls are, made for today's modern game of, how a lot of, at least in the States, how the lane patterns tend to be.
We are visiting with Team USA assistant coach Brian O'Keefe. I'm Jason Overstreet. Thanks for being with us here on Bowl TV. We hope that you'll take a moment and share on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever means is convenient. Let folks know that we've got live coverage of the World Championships here. Women taking the stage today in the trios competition. We'll have 2 squads of qualifying and then the medal round later this evening.
And I think this pattern, just from, like I said, sitting up here for a little bit and watching the end of the first game, they just do seem a little bit tighter down lane and from the pocket. So the shots that the ladies were getting right off their hand a little bit, for right-handed players, I'm sorry, I always talk with a right-handed bias to start. The shots that were getting a little right off their hand, would still recover and get back to the pocket. And those shots right now look like, they may be kind of wiggling down lane a little bit and coming up light, or even sometimes missing the head pin. And because of that, they feel like they don't have much room to the right, so everything tightens up a little bit, and they may move to the right to try and give themselves a little bit more friction to the right of them, but then they lose the hold that they have. So that little tube that kind of looked like it was developed right from the word go on the fresh for the double squad for these ladies looks like it may not quite be in the same spot, but there's still people striking, just probably not. It'd be interesting to see what the first game scores were here this morning and compare them to the first game of the double sets. But
you find that pretty consistently across events, that a pattern that might play one way for, say, a doubles will play significantly different for a trios or team, just based on the traffic. Even you'd think that you could sort of look at the number of balls rolled on the pattern and would expect some kind of a similar breakdown, but I guess not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say drastically different, but of course they're going to be slightly different. Just like I've said a few times already, that lane machine going down there, and then also people are trying new things. The people that are striking aren't going to try something else, but the people who aren't striking are going to watch the people who are striking, and they're going to try and do what they're doing. So the breakdowns, the transitions probably going to happen a little bit faster. Everything's going to be different. When they practice, they're going to practice from a different part of the lane because the coaches went and watched who's been striking and what they've been doing. So it definitely seems like it's consistent that you'll start to see possibly different players start to do well throughout the course of a week. The people who are bowling well in the first part of the week may start to not bowl quite as well, and other people who were struggling may start to bowl a little better. But the small differences, I wouldn't say drastic differences, but definitely enough differences to cut back 15, 20 pins a game for some people's score. I'm not sure if we're going to see any 750 to 800s out here. We may, but it seemed like quite a few girls were bowling over 720 to 760 the first 3 games on Thursday. Is that when it was? Thursday? Yeah. Thursday or Wednesday, one of those days. See, I've only been here 3 days. I've already mixing up what day it is.
Another thing I've noticed, Brian, with the competition here is just a great parity in the wide number of countries that are in contention for medals, not just a select few, but really a broad base. I mean, yesterday we had, of course, Canada win gold, Colombia medaling, Finland always strong, done well earlier, Korea, of course, but the Aussies medaling on the women's side. Just really a lot of different teams that seem to be in the hunt. Venezuela, the Marcano sisters, of course, blowing the doors off things in doubles during qualifying before having a little bit of a struggle in the medal round. All zones really representing strongly, kind of in a balanced fashion, I think also. And it's been interesting to see here at the World Championships to see parity to some degree across some of the zones.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had people up here talking about this is the first time that the World Championships, because it was a combined World Championships, it's the first time that you actually had to qualify for this championships through your zone championships. So, all the teams here have qualified to be here, so that makes it a little bit different. You kind of have the cream of the crop of the world. All these people have done well enough to make it here, so it is pretty cool to see especially the American zone. Obviously, with myself and our Team USA being from the American zone, we'd love to see other American zone countries doing well. And the skill level overall is great, but we've really seen a big influx in the American zone. Yesterday 3 out of the 4 countries were from the American zone, and I'm not sure when the last time that happened was of one event to have 3 out of 4 being from the American zone.
I know that the qualifying aspect of this World Championships was somewhat born out of necessity. The center able to only accommodate so many teams, despite having 72 lanes. It just becomes overwhelming at times. But is that a better model, even in a non-combined year when it's just the women's or just the men's championship? Should there be a qualification process for the World Championships? If for no other reason, to some degree, just kind of the integrity of the event, not trying to take anything away from those countries that didn't qualify, but generally speaking, for many international events, there's some kind of qualifying process to sort of ensure that those that are there are of the elite level, and then also it can affect who you cross with on the pairs, whether or not you are on the lanes with somebody that is at the similar level of knowledge and skill as opposed to somebody that maybe really isn't quite ready to be there yet.
Sure. There's a lot of good points to that statement you just made. I would defer that to, Mr. Dornberger and the WTBA officials think on that. But yeah, there's definitely some benefit to that. I think a lot of other sports, in order to play in the World Championships, you have to qualify for it. So it's definitely been cool, look up and down. And like you said, no despairing some of the countries that want to come and compete. That's the tough part, In the long run, in the grand scheme of things, this is supposed to be an event where people are out playing and having fun. Now, granted, we give away, gold medals, and anytime you have gold medals involved and we start talking, governments involved with monetary compensations for those medals, obviously it's going to be some great competition. But, it's a tough question. I can see both sides of it, to where if a country wants to come and wants to support the event, and, who are the bowling higher-ups to say that, no, you can't. But I also see that side of it, too, as well, that, the best of the best is here, and it's pretty cool to see that.
Visiting with Brian O'Keefe, assistant coach at Team USA. I'm Jason Overstreet. Appreciate everybody being with us here on Bowl TV for this squad of women's trios. We are live from Strike Zone inside Sunset Station Hotel and Casino in Henderson, Nevada, suburban Las Vegas. Immediately following this event is the USBC Queens. It's an event on the WTBA World Tour, so many of the players here will be sticking around, so it's another good reason to make sure that you subscribe to Bowl TV and are aware of what's going on with the Queens. We'll have live coverage of that event here as well. So a lot of quality stuff and a lot of time spent in Sunset Station. I guess Shannon O'Keefe and Stephanie Nation, and I know most, if not all, of the Team USA women will be staying for the Queens as well, correct?
Yeah, they've been here for a long time already, been here for over maybe 10, 11 days, and I don't even think they're halfway here. They're halfway home in terms of their stay here at Sunset Station. Myself, I'm headed out in the morning to go back to give some lessons in the training center and take care of the training center back in Arlington, while Kim and Rod man the ship here. But this trip here this weekend was more from a husband standpoint than it was a working Team USA standpoint, on letting the coaches do their thing and just trying to sit back and watch my wife, participate. I've never actually been on Team USA 8 or 9 years now. I'm not exactly sure how many, but I've never gotten to watch her bowl in international competition. So thankfully we didn't have things scheduled in the training center, and the last 2 days have been our days that were closed in the training center, so it's been good that I can make a quick trip out here and just kind of watch and see how things are going. People
don't realize necessarily, even though it's certainly is a exciting thing to be able to have a family that is so involved in the Team USA bowling program, but given that you have a training center to run in Arlington, and Shannon, of course, is on the road competing a lot, it does mean that you're not able to necessarily see each other for big blocks of time, especially in a competition like this. And I know that just as a student of the sport, that you really like to be able to come and see what's going on in person at these events, and also as a coach, somebody that spends a lot of time training international players. Typically it's Rod Ross and Kim Terrell-Kearney that end up traveling with the team, at least the adult team, to these championships. Brian heads on the road quite a bit with Junior Team USA and has been with them at World Championships as well as PABCON Zone Championships. So it's certainly a lot to schedule.
Yeah, not to get too much into myself and Shan's schedule over the summer, but it's been pretty hectic over the last month. I think I've seen her for a grand total of 4 days over the last month, and I'm not going to see her after today until another 3 weeks. So it can get a little hectic like that, but hey, she's doing what she's loving to do, and I'm obviously going to support that. And I get to stay home and give lessons and try and help people get better in the training center. We got a lady coming in the next couple days from Australia who's headed over for the Queens, so she's coming in for a couple days early to get a few tips and pointers and make sure the game's nice and sharp before she comes out here to bowl the Queens. So it'll be fun.
Well, the Canadians are putting together a nice game in front of us right now on the featured pair. We haven't been talking a whole lot about scores, just given the trios competition kind of goes at a slower pace, and we know that those of you watching have access to the live scoring application and can check that out. But as we see Caroline Legrand step up, she has a chance to put together 3 in a row after opening with a double and then one spare in the third. But they're all clean thus far and have strung several strikes, so they may be putting together a little move here.
Yeah, they're about 75 over through 6 if Caroline strikes here. Yep. So that's not too shabby of a start. And like I said, I think we start to see people. I don't think they necessarily got off to the best start that first game. We're a little too far away for me to be able to tell if that's some minuses or pluses up there on the board, but it looks like they're probably right around even or a little bit under. Yeah, it looks like they're probably they shot about 560 the first game, so this game it's good to see them turn it around. Caroline, I wonder how she ever misses the pocket. I really like the way she bowls. And the Koreans at times seems like they never do miss the pocket.
Yep.
From time to time.
Very consistent.
And the leadoff player there bowled 240 the first game and has 9 spare 6-baggers. So she's obviously not struggling with today's pattern. Like I said, there's still going to be good scores. Anytime you put this many good players in the room, there's going to be some people who strike and some people who whack it. So that's just the nature of the beast. But overall, the scoring pace seems to be a little bit lower so far through one game. That can change pretty quickly, but through one game.
Well, after 4 games, it's Korea, Chinese Taipei, Singapore, Sweden. The other Korea team, Japan, Venezuela, Singapore, the Netherlands, and Sweden. So, did have 2 Korean teams in the top 4 to begin with. One of them slipped a bit.
Yeah, I think that's the team that's bowling right now. They dropped a little bit. Just in terms of average, they dropped a little bit.
Again, it is the top 4 teams from the 2 squads combined that advance to the medal round. So this is the first squad that will be finishing, and they will have to wait and see if their scores hold up and are high enough to get them to the semifinals.
Great shot, great shot.
That's got to be hard to bowl your score and sit and wait and see how things sort of turn out.
Boy,
that's
that's
a tough thing.
I'm sure that everyone prefers to be on the second squad to know what you need to shoot at, as opposed to sitting around and waiting. And really, you've kind of got to be in one of those top 2 spots to have a whole lot of comfort, and sometimes it's only the top 1 that holds up.
Yeah, that's tough. But you just got to try and knock down as many as you can and let the bowling gods take it from there. I pulled up the scores here, Jason, just off the first game alone, and there wasn't a 700, which if you would have looked at the double scores, you would have thought that there would have been quite a few 700s that first game. 690 was the high for that first game from Team Australia, led by Miss Carol Giannotti and Anne-Marie Putney with a 240 game, and then China, Philippines, Hong Kong. So there's only 3 teams that bowled above 650 that first set, and second and third were 653 and 651. So, overall, definitely a little bit lower scoring right on the fresh, at least. So, it'll be interesting to see how everybody adjusts.
All strikes for Canada in that frame, and as we had mentioned, just some momentum for the Canadians. And
yeah, they picked up 20 more that frame, so they were about 70 some over after 6, and now they're about 80 over after 7. Still a possible huge game. A couple 270s and then 260, so that's a smooth 780 if they can find a way to throw the back 10 or so here.
Yep, Korea's striking too on that pair. Everybody seems to have found a nice groove. And one more, so all Koreans had doubled heading into that frame, and that's now 7 straight for Kim.
And so she's on a 250 pace right now. The second bowler is bowling on 190 pace, and their anchor's at a 2-teen pace. So 60 some over, 70 over, depending what the count ends up being.
So it's interesting to try to gauge scoring trends, and difficult to do from, when you can't walk to the center, but it looks like that just right out of the gate that the scoring pace was a little bit lower, certainly from what, you verified that, Brian, but now maybe things opening up with a little bit more room as we're seeing, at least on this player consistently, all these players have a nice roll to the pocket and a good ball reaction.
Yeah, most of the female competitors are all going to generally be sort of camped out around the same part of the lane. With the guys, you see so many drastic different styles. With the females, they tend to be, I'd almost like to say, maybe a little more physically sound, and they all kind of do things more straighter up the lane. So that's going to basically put everybody in roughly the same part of the lane on the fresh on that first game. So, the transition, instead of, maybe on the guys' side, you see the scores come down the second game. Here you may see them go up because, everybody's playing the same part of the lane. So even when they move after their first pair, all the people that were bowling that first pair are probably going to be playing pretty close to where they were on their last pair. And with the guys, we see some people using urethane playing out. We see some guys hooking it from the middle in. So depending on what pair you go to, they may be completely different. And that's not even bringing in the topography aspect of going from pair to pair. So.
We're visiting with Brian O'Keefe, assistant coach at Team USA. I'm Jason Overstreet. Glad to have you with us on Bowl TV. And Brian, part of the strategy that goes into this event when you get to the semifinals is choice of pattern. The teams with the higher seed have the choice of whether they want to bowl on the medium pattern or the short pattern. What goes into that decision? I know that was interesting yesterday when Team USA, as the top seed, chose the short pattern and then ended up really struggling on it. Certainly always difficult to predict exactly how things are going to go, but the staff, I would think, is pretty familiar with the topography pair to pair. They've had all bowled on it previously, but yet it really didn't turn out too well.
Yeah, in that example, that USA team, the trio of Tommy Jones, Bill O'Neill, and Chris Barnes, they had the highest set on the short out of anybody. And if they looked at their medium scores that day, they were about 7th or 8th. So, more than anything, I think we were just trying to make sure we didn't play defense. Try and play offense. Pick the pattern that you think you're going to bowl the best on, and then if you get beat, so be it. Obviously it's a one-game match, so anything can happen. Everybody's a great player, so most definitely anything can happen. So I think, so you don't look back and have any regrets trying to play defense and say, well, this team may struggle on this pattern. Just play whatever pattern you have the best look on and you think you can score the best on, and then hopefully you just out-bowl the team that you're bowling against. And in yesterday's case, everybody was throwing urethane, and after the match was done, I talked with all the players, obviously, just sort of chatting it up a little bit. And they said, Bill O'Neill, for example, said he's never seen a pair of lanes change so much from frame 1 to frame 10. So, they just kept getting tighter and tighter and tighter. All those urethane balls going down the lane just really, really pulled a lot of smudge, a lot of the oil down lane with it. And I think Chris said he moved from the second frame that he threw on the one lane, and then to the 10th frame when he finished, he was 3.5 right with his feet. You don't see that very much when you're throwing the modern type bowling balls, to where you're moving 3 to 4 boards right throughout the course of a game. If anything, it's the exact opposite. You're moving 4 or 5 boards left. So, I think it was a tougher pair. Canada bowled awesome, obviously, and they were the better team that game. It's just, it's tough. Anytime you just break it down into one game, like I said, it makes it hard. It's just about who can execute in that frame. And Canada did enough. They made a lot of really difficult spares that game. They left themselves with some tough makes, and they made them, and they made Team USA put a string together to try and pass them, and they just couldn't do it. So, they stayed ahead and then just kept grinding and filling frames.
Yeah, certainly all the credit in the world to Canada, as that was their day, and they executed fabulously and certainly earned the gold. Just an interesting strategy that goes into things in the events where you're choosing patterns. It's great to have some insight into sort of the overall mindset of how the staff approaches it, because I'm sure that there are a lot of different ways you can look at it. You could take into account who it is that you're playing. You could take into account the particular success on a given lane. But it sounds like, looking at it from the approach of not worrying about who the opponent is, just trying to look at it in the context of how the greatest comfort level and scoring success of your players are going to be kind of relative to the field as a whole. And I think that's probably keeps the coaching staff from outthinking themselves as well.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of it we hand over to the players. They're the one that's going to be bowling on it. What do you guys feel most comfortable bowling on? Would you rather bowl on the short or the medium? And they talked about it for a little bit, and they came up with the short. They had bowled great on the short the whole time. Like, they're 240 over the first day on the short and had a 50 or 60 pin lead on the field. So, for a one-game match, they were thinking that was the one that was going to take them to the promised land. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But like I said, fortunate enough to know a lot of the Canadian players and all of the Canadian players that are here. So, it's great to see those guys have the success. There's lots of friends from our neighbors up north, and it was great to see Mark and Frankie and Patrick pull it through and take one home for the American zone.
Well, you talk about a home center advantage for a host country, and certainly the United States players bowl a lot of games here at Sunset Station. This traditionally is the home for Team USA trials, and it's frequently the host center for the Queen's Masters, has been for the U.S. Open in the past. But you could almost call this a home center advantage for the entire American zone, because PABCON championships have been here several times, and many of these players from, whether it be Colombia, Canada, Venezuela, Mexico, come here for those events as well. And those that have recently bowled collegiately may have come here for collegiate events also. So to what degree that plays into some of the success of those countries, and maybe something that the national teams from the other side of the world have a little bit more of a learning curve on, who knows?
Yeah, I was looking in the chat when I was home watching, I can't remember what event it was, or whether it was guys or girls, but somebody brought up the fact that out of all the events we've had here from the 3 or 4 years of team trials, maybe even longer that team trials has been here, these two patterns have never been put out in this bowling center for an event, which I think that's kind of amazing that, out of all the, pretty much every year, we don't put out the same patterns for the Team USA trials. We put out different things, but these two patterns have never been two that have been selected. Now, I was looking at the chat on the live stream, and some people were saying, well, that doesn't play. That's not that big of a difference. We're only talking about a foot here or there, but it really does. Every pattern's, it's not just about the distance. They're shaped differently. The volumes are different. So, whether you put out a 33-foot Sydney pattern or whether you put out a 34-foot Stockholm pattern, it is going to play drastically different just because of the shape, like I said, is different. And the topography of the bowling center may allow you to do different things. A foot on the lane is a long way. Doesn't seem like it is, but if your ball goes a foot too long or it starts up a foot too early, you're not going to hit the pocket one way or another on one of those distances. So, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't sound like a lot, but the fact that those patterns have never been bowled on here, I think that does play a difference in maybe equaling it back out for the Asian zone countries or for the European countries, because none of the Team USA players or none of the other countries have ever participated on these patterns in this center.
And to what degree that any of that information may have been available or gone into the choice of patterns by the technical delegate, who knows?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But one could argue that that's a good thing, that certainly the aim at the World Championships is to have, an equitable situation where those types of advantages are minimized as much as possible so that it's fair for all the teams. Team USA, this game is not really making much of a move. Liz Johnson with a couple of doubles. Missy with a couple of doubles and an open. And Kelly with an open and no doubles. So they're
going to need.
They're not really going anywhere in the standings. Certainly, when you look at what Canada and Korea are doing in front of us by comparison.
Yeah, we're looking at.
Doesn't look like it's going to happen for this trio squad for the United States.
I think they just put themselves behind the 8 ball a little too much. They knew they had to come out here today and really put up some big scores, and unfortunately for them, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. They all doubled in the 8th and 9th frame there, but still, even if they sheet, they got 230, 220, that's 61, and 61 and 16, 670. So a decent score if they all strike out in the 10th, but they really needed to put together some huge scores because, like you mentioned here, Korea is looking at 60, and so they're looking at 720, 730 here in the 10th if they can strike out. And I'm not sure where Canada is in the standings, but they're looking at putting together a smooth 760-ish here if Samantha and Miss Caroline can strike out in the 10th.
Here's Samantha's first shot in the 10th.
Come on, baby, come on.
And that's a little bit too far right.
All right, good night, good night.
I actually thought that one looked pretty good when she threw it, but
Sammy, let it go.
yeah, so Canada was 5th on this squad going into this game. So this will definitely help, give them at least a pop going in that last game. They throw another 740 or 750, and who knows? The Korean team, well, it looks like they're 14 pins behind the Swedish team on this squad, and 720 more than likely is probably going to keep them right around and probably more than likely pass the Swedish team depending on what they're bowling.
All right, Sammy, all right. Great bowling, Sam, great bowling.
Team Canada must just really like lanes 55 and 56. That's the same pair that they won the gold on.
That's right.
Last night. This is the lucky lanes for the Canadians.
That strike by the anchor bowler from Korea puts them in the 700s for sure. A few more here and they can bowl 730, so it's definitely a little bit different than the first game where I think they struggled to bowl 600 with the 240 game. The leadoff bowler has 240, 250 the first two. So.
just a great display all around here on this featured pair.
And like I mentioned, I wasn't here for the qualifying of the doubles on this pattern, but I watched the live stream of the 2 American teams and the Marcano sisters and the Australians, and everybody seemed to be a little bit deeper than what these two teams are playing right now. So once again, I wouldn't doubt if it's just at the back part of the lane, meaning, in front of the last 15 feet of the lane's playing a little bit tighter until they have to kind of stand more on top of it a little bit. That's a pretty good bounce back game for Caroline. Look, she bowled 160 the first game and then backed it up with 250.
Huge scores for both Canada and Korea.
Yeah, 730 and 745 with a strike here from Caroline. So yeah, that's what you see. It's pair to pair can be really different. It could have been just that first pair they bowled on wasn't necessarily a great pair, even though it was fresh and they got to kind of break them down how they wanted in practice. But there's only 3 of them. They're not going to change the lanes too much over the course of a 15-minute practice session. But throughout the course of the game, they may have just transitioned a little bit differently than what they were expecting. But then they come over down here to the higher end, and sure enough, they're almost 300 over between the 6 of them, which is a pretty good set for the 6 of them.
Boy, it's just fun watching Caroline LaGrange throw the ball. She has such a beautiful delivery, great ball roll.
Yeah, she throws it great. Like I said, I'm surprised she ever misses the pocket when I watch her bowl. She throws it great, that's for sure.
So Team Canada with a 738, Korea with a 730. So that's certainly some impressive numbers. So we'll take a look full screen now at Russia and Poland as they are a frame behind, just getting started in the 10th. New Zealand and Australia have wrapped up on lanes 51 and 52. 624 for Australia, 523 for New Zealand. If you're just joining us, this is the tail end of game number 5 for this squad of trios, first squad of the day. So we'll have live coverage for you throughout the day, and of course medal rounds later tonight. I'm Jason Overstreet. Appreciate having Brian O'Keefe, assistant coach of Team USA, joining us on the live stream as well. Lucas will be back later in the day. For now, Brian and I'll let you watch the end of Poland and Russia and be back to chat with you some more as we get started in game number 6 here in just a few minutes. As you can see, we're underway here in game number 6 of the trios competition. Appreciate everybody joining us. I'm Jason Overstreet along with Team USA assistant coach Brian O'Keefe.
Hey, Jason, we were talking about right before we came back on here, we were wondering if any of these teams in front of us are really in contention for this trios top 4, and unfortunately there weren't anybody that was really near that number. And then I'm looking out at the teams that are bowling here and just see, a tremendous amount of talent, and the teams that are here are really, really, high quality teams. So just shows you that the margin of error in these events is so small. One game either way, one bad game as a group, and everybody's so bunched up that we see drastic turns in the standings pretty quickly. And even with all the talented teams here, we obviously the 2 American zone teams right in front of us of Mexico and Colombia, we've gotten to see them bowl for a long time. A few of the Colombian team members have been on their junior team the last couple of years, so I've gotten to see them bowl in international competition, and just quite amazing that some of these teams and the players are still struggling to get to that number when the amount of talent that they have. So just shows you how tight everybody is.
Yeah, it is also very close for that top 4. Just recapping who is in front of us, this rotation on 51 through 56, 55 and 56 features Colombia and Mexico, 53 and 54 England and Costa Rica, while Germany and Finland are on 51 and 52. In terms of the standings right now, it is all Korea at the top. The Korean team that bowls next squad continues to lead by average at 223. With the Korean team that we just saw on 55 and 56 the previous game, now moving up into the 2nd position with a 212 average. Chinese Taipei, who bowls later today, maintains, of course, not having hit the lanes yet, at 210, and Canada jumps up to the 4th position now with a 208 average.
Yeah, so just that game alone, we saw a lot of flip-flopping in the leaderboard. Sweden was leading this squad going into that game. They had an unfortunate 577 that game, and that dropped them out of the top 4 spots in terms of average. And Canada was about 8th overall going into that game, and 738 brought them all the way up into that 4th spot right now. So Canada's currently 57 pins behind the Korean team that is bowling right now. So I'm sure both those teams are looking for one more big game and then just letting things play out however they will. It'll be interesting to see how Colombia and Mexico does on this pair, where we just saw 260 over bowled between the 2 teams, 730 and 738. Be interesting to see if it's pair or if it's more, how the players were playing the lanes. What? So unfortunately, the team from USA on this squad, from my standpoint, unfortunately, I'll say, had 620 that game, but that only leaves them in 16th place overall in terms of average, so looking like it's not going to happen for them this morning.
No, and not really the kind of scoring pace increase I know that Team USA was hoping for.
Yeah, I was expecting Kelly to put together a big 3-game set there, and well, 215, 199 for 414 total for the 2 games, which not anything to shake your head at by any means, but for Kelly's standpoint, I'm sure she was looking to come out of the gates really hot and put together maybe a 480 to 500 first 2 game set to get that team back into contention. But like I said, Lane just playing just a little bit different, and so 7:30 games look like they're really top of the heap now, and 7:30 is making a big jump in how all the other teams are playing. So you're picking up a good 100 pins if you can bowl in that 720 to 730 range. It looks more like right now, around the 620 range. Out of even the top teams is basically what everybody's bowling. So a little bit lower scoring pace than what we saw for the doubles set on this, for the doubles competition on this particular pattern.
Brian, you just wrapped up an interesting program at the International Training and Research Center not long ago called the Bowling Combine for college prospects. And I'm curious, did you have any international turnout, or is that something that really you would like to be able to increase the audience internationally for? We'll tell a little bit about the program in a moment, but first, did you have some players from outside of the United States?
We did. We had a couple players here, as a matter of fact. A couple of people bowling for Costa Rica on the men's side. James Stanley and Rodolfo Madriz. Rodolfo bowled the combine last year, and Mr. Stanley has bowled the combine each of the last 2 years. So we did again. We had a couple people from different countries, from Aruba and from Chile and from Costa Rica. So yeah, that program continues to grow. It's definitely our mainstay in the summertime in the International Training and Research Center. A lot of preparing goes into it. We ask for a lot of help from the IBC campus of people coming down and volunteering their time for an hour or so during the day, or even when they get out of work at the end of the day and coming in and helping us out to track all the things that we put all the players through. But yeah, once again, we filled up. We were completely full to capacity of the event, which was 108 players, and the collegiate coaches' participation this year was even better than it has been in the previous 2 years. We had...
Yeah, let me stop for a minute and
sure.
explain a little bit about the program, because I know that we have a lot of viewers that are watching outside of the United States, and really this is a program that we're going to talk about, the Combine, which is geared towards young bowlers who would like to bowl in college in the United States. So if you have someone in your federation or someone that you know that would potentially be interested in coming to the United States to bowl in college, this program is an evaluation program to where bowlers come in and they have their skills objectively measured by Brian O'Keefe and the Team USA coaching staff. But really the coaching staff just facilitating the measurement process, and the players perform essentially and are evaluated by college coaches, and then it's a way to be able to make introductions, players that are wanting to bowl in college with coaches that may have spots available. And it's grown into a very popular program in the United States at the International Training and Research Center. It's been going on for several years. It's been a sellout every year, and one that Brian and the team are looking to expand to invite even more players from international competition to be able to come and be a part of it.
For sure, Jason. It's how we go about picking the players. It's an application process, generally around the first of the year, so January or February. We go live with the application online, and you guys upstairs in media, and you guys do a great job of getting the word out there for people, and it goes up on bowl.com. And then basically from that point on till about June, it's just an application process for the players. So if you're interested in coming or know somebody's interested in coming, come January, February of this upcoming 2014 year, have them fill out the application online. And then it's basically a waiting game for a few months, because we have, we let time go quite a ways, and we've had over 225 to 250 applications each of the last 2 years alone. So we have a lot of people that are interested in coming out. And then, through some of our connections around the world and around the country, we make some phone calls to see, player development, and see who are the kids that, are ready for it. And we look at, not just bowling ability either, really, they're going to increase their higher learning and increase their education. So, we look at GPA and their scores. In terms of international folk, you know, there's a TOEFL score that international students have to take, test that they have to take in order to come over and qualify to go to school in the United States. So, you know, it's an arduous process for us to sort of get those 220 or 250 applicants down to 60 boys and 48 girls, which is what we've had the last 2 years. But yeah, in terms of the evaluation process, it's really it's one of a kind. It's the only place where we strictly evaluate skill. You know, it's not a coaching seminar. We put everybody through the same ringer of tests that we put Team USA, Junior Team USA, Women's Team USA through, to where we track their spare shooting ability, we track their shot repeatability, how accurate they can consistently repeat their ball speed, how accurately they can consistently repeat hitting their target at 15 feet, hitting their target at 39 feet, how consistently they can repeat the same launch angle, how versatile they can be with their release in terms of being able to change hand positions, change revolution rate if they can change that. And then not only that's what we call our sport-specific aspect of the combine, but then we also take them in the gym and look at some basic overall athleticism type rankings with Nick Bohannon, our trainer here for Team USA. So we get that aspect of it as well. And then lastly, we have what we call the it factor, which is basically like some questions about the modern game of bowling, about bowling ball dynamics and about lane play and stuff like that. And we actually have, you know, for our international folk, we have the test translated into different, depending on who's coming over. This year they're all Spanish-speaking countries, so we had a Spanish version of the IT Factor test that was up and ready to go, because we understand that there's a lot of people overseas that are interested in coming over and going to school in the States, and if they can do it and bowl and find some scholarship money available for them, that more power to them. So we're definitely interested in this becoming a worldwide event. I think we had over 30 countries or 30 states in the United States that came to the combine this year. So we're definitely not just a local event. Now we do get our people from Texas and Oklahoma that come, but we had over 30 different states represented at the combine this year. So that shows the widespread nature that it's taking in the United States. We're getting people from last year we had a gentleman from Hawaii come, and we had somebody from Maine. So basically we have both sides of the spectrum of the United States.
We're talking about the combine for college prospects. You can find more information at bowl.com/combine, and again, bringing it up to our international audience because it is just a great opportunity. We see a lot of young bowlers from all over the world that come to the United States with an opportunity to earn college scholarships and improve their bowling skills, and then often go back and have even greater success for their national team.
Yeah, that's a question we get quite a bit when we're out with Junior Team USA, whether it be parents from players from other countries or coaches that are, say, I have a few people who are interested in coming over to the States to not only continue their education, but also they want to participate in the sport of bowling. So, we get those questions a lot. So 100%, like Jason says, visit bowl.com to learn a little bit about the combine itself, and then really look out, maybe in a couple, 3-4 months for when the application process for the 2014 combine, for when that goes live and when we start accepting those applications.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're in game number 6 here of the trios competition, about fourth frame, as we wait and see which scores end up being the ones that are the pace setters to advance to the medal round. You can find the results on bowl.com as well as the live scoring application. Appreciate everybody joining us here on Bowl TV. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, suggest that you do.
As it looks right now, it looks like a 2-team race for this squad's lead between Korea and Canada.
See a comment from James Porter in chat. Thanks, James, for saying some kind words about the bowling combine, calling it the most exceptional event that a future college athlete can attend. It really helps understand the areas to work on. And that's, you hear that from a lot of folks, those athletes that have attended, that it may be something that allows you to get matched up with a coach and finds a school to bowl, or it may be something that just gives you a lot of good feedback to help advance your bowling for personal competition or whatever the case may be, because it's you can't in a traditional bowling center environment evaluate the objective elements of your game the same way that you can in the training center. You can't measure your shot repeatability the same way, or axis rotation and different variables like you can speed control in the same way. So it tells you what you need to work on in terms of being able to improve and get to that next level. You can really take a lot from it.
Yeah, I really think that is probably the biggest thing. We obviously know that the collegiate coaches coming is a tremendous asset and a major drawing point for a lot of the players. But one thing, just like you said, Jason, you brought it up brilliantly as always, is that the main thing that these players can take is that no longer do they have to guess what they need to get better on. There's no subjectivity. It's not Mr. Jason Overstreet saying that you need to get better on your timing and myself saying, no, your timing's fine. There's no subjectivity when it comes to that. All the different areas that we measure are objectively measured with data. And you can compare yourself to not only players that are at the combine that you're competing in. So, for example, this couple weeks ago, the 2013 combine participants got to compare themselves in all these different areas to all the other players that were at this combine. But then, on a side note, because the data stays the same year after year, and the measurables that we are, getting this data from stays the same from year to year, we can compare you to players from last year's combine and the combine before, and Team USA members and Women Team USA members. So all the data is the same. So you can compare bowler A to bowler B to bowler C regardless of age, gender, skill level, anything. You can compare where they fit in terms of all those different things, and that's awesome that Mr. Jim Porter enjoyed it so much. Jim's has been a great supporter of our facility, and we're a great supporter of Jim. We're working with Jim right now on an event to bring in some Latin folk and have like a Latin week in the training center that Jim is going to work hand in hand with us on. And Jim's a great coach in the world of bowling. He has been for a long time, and we're glad that we have him on board and helping us out in the training center with just spreading the word about what we do there.
Outstanding. You can find more information about that event. Once again, we're talking about the Combine. It's bowl.com/combine. You can also find a link to the International Training and Research Center, which is the ITRC for short, on bowl.com to get more details on some of the programs that are offered there. It's the training home for Team USA, but many countries from around the world have used it for training as well. Many of the countries that are here at the championships have been to the training center as a part of it. SK8 Bowling Reviews wants to know if the Combine would be a good fit for someone that recently started bowling, a girl in high school who's already in the 180s, and I think the answer is just send in an application.
Yep.
Certainly encourage anybody who has an interest in bowling in college should send an application as long as they have eligibility, and just see. I mean, there are, as Brian detailed, there are several factors that go into it. Everything from bowling ability to scholastic aptitude. So it's not just one thing. It's not an easy answer, but certainly apply, and also just availability, how many applicants there are and how many spaces. It has been a sellout, unfortunately. Haven't been able to accommodate everyone who is interested with just the limited time and staff of the facility, but certainly welcome everybody who's interested getting in touch with the staff to see if it might work.
Yeah, for sure. To add a little bit to that, Jason, the coaches are looking for the diamonds in the rough. Obviously there's lots of great junior programs around there. Ourselves inside the bowling campus know how great North Point Junior Gold tournament is, and just the sheer volume of numbers of players that go there and compete for awesome amounts of scholarship money and just competition and camaraderie that goes along with the sport of bowling. But from a coach's standpoint, it can be a little bit hard for them. There's so many players get missed in that event. It's such a huge field that you can have two bad days and not make the semifinals, and some of the coaches may not have gotten to see you, where this is a more intimate setting, I guess you could say, where you know, the coaches are right there watching you go through all the elements that we're tracking, and you know, they get updates really quick. So yeah, that's, you know, obviously, just like Jason said, I would suggest anybody who's interested in bowling at the next level in high school to send in an application, and then you know, hopefully we'd like to make the combine bigger, but unfortunately our facility's 14 lanes, and we can only fit so many people on a squad for the amount of data that we're trying to collect. And the days alone for us are pretty long as is at a 108-person field. This couple weeks ago, I was getting to the facility at about 5:45 in the morning and leaving it at about 10 at night. We had squads from 8 in the morning running to about 9 at night every day, 8 o'clock, 9 at night every day. So, you know, there's not much more time to, unless we wanted to go 24 hours around the clock of having people on the lanes. But yeah, anybody interested would definitely support an application coming in come, you know, January, February.
Certainly love to hear from you, and I know that we have a lot of folks watching in different parts of the world. One thing I enjoy doing when we have the opportunity here from the World Championships on Bowl TV, if you're logged into the chat on YouTube, and for those of you that are watching on the World Championships page or the homepage of bowl.com, if you go to youtube.com/Bowl TV and are actually watching this on YouTube with the chat available, logged in with your Google account or YouTube account, type in the chat and tell us what country you're watching from. We enjoy seeing all the different people that are around the world and like to know where you are. We've seen so many different countries represented, and it's fantastic to be able to get a chance to hear where you are. We can see it in some of the data that we get from YouTube, but I think it's neat for everybody in the chat to see it as well. This certainly is, while Bowl TV is a service of the United States Bowling Congress, we are thrilled to be able to have people from all around the world watching. So please type a comment just to let us know what country you're watching from.
Yeah, for sure. When I'm home watching, I always have the chat up next to it, and I generally try not to type any chats in there. But it's cool when you ask people to type their country, and then the list starts coming down of all the different countries. It's pretty cool to see, especially with all the different time zones. You know, it's late in some places, and they're still up.
Yep.
Watching.
It's fun to see. Switzerland, Mexico, the Netherlands, watching from sunny England, Canada, Chile.
I remember a couple years ago when the Women's World Championships were in Hong Kong. I was trying to take a nap. I think I was more tired than my wife, who was bowling that event, because it was basically about an 11-hour time change, and the semifinals and finals were taking place at 3 o'clock in the morning Central Time in the United States. So I would take a nap from about 11 o'clock at night till 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, and set my alarm, and then wake up and watch the events that she was taking place in. So definitely, you guys out there, some of you guys that are watching from places where it may be late already, you guys are troopers.
Cheers from Catalonia. Glad to have you with us. Denmark, Belgium. It is just so fantastic to be able to see such a wonderfully diverse set of countries interested in these World Championships. Certainly a tremendous amount of bowling talent around the world. There's just nothing quite like the World Championships of being able to have so many different cultures together, all sharing a common love of the sport. And it's just wonderful. If only our politicians could just be more like bowlers and learn to get along so well, the world would be a better place.
That's for sure, Mr. Jason.
That could be a new phrase to run on.
That's right.
If only more politicians would bowl, the world would be a better place.
Could make T-shirts.
There you go.
With that saying on it, Jason.
Well, those of you watching from Mexico have got to like what you've seen from the Mexican women on 55 and 56. Azarette started with a spare and Hasn't missed yet. I'm not going to jinx her. She's going to throw a strike here.
Sure.
Oh.
Don't start talking about that jinx stuff.
Oh.
No such thing, as far as you know.
I thought that Azret had such a good look that my comments were not going to affect things. But
But still taking spare 5-bagger out of the gate.
Yep.
I take that every day for the rest of my life in the game of bowling and take my chances.
Mexico and Colombia here. A couple of examples of national teams with some great young talent that just seems to be getting better every competition.
And collegiate players in the United States as well.
Absolutely. Angie Ramirez, who is up right now on lane 56, has several national championships to her credit. University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
And I believe the anchor on that team, Juliana Franco, I believe she is coming to the States this year to bowl as well. So 2 out of the 3 of them will bowled college in the United States. And then Sandy bowled for Wichita State. It never amazes me to see the young talent here, Jason. You know, we watch some of these teams play, and you talk to their coaches and say, "How old are these guys?" "Oh, our oldest person's 22 years old." It's like, whoa, my gosh.
I think we mentioned it last game talking about parity, and that's what's we're seeing happen with some of this young talent from various countries coming up. And as these players gain more and more experience, the countries that have been traditional powers are going to find a lot more competition.
Yeah, I think you're seeing it already, and who's making all the medal rounds. Like you said, it's diverse. It's not just one country dominating or 2 countries dominating. You know, every event there's different countries that are popping up and making a run at winning a medal. It's also nice to see a lot of the teams that, you know, I happened to be lucky enough to go to the World Youth Championships in Bangkok, Thailand last year, and to see a lot of the teams, a lot of the players who were there at that event now competing in the World Championships. So they're continuing to develop their game through coaching and hard work, and you know, to take that game to the next level and not just compete on the youth level, but also make their adult national teams and are now competing here.
We're glad to have you with us for the conversation. I'm Jason Overstreet from USBC Communications, joined by Brian O'Keefe, assistant coach with Team USA. Roughly in frame number 7 here of the final game for this squad's trios qualifying. Live scoring available through a link on bowl.com, as well as results as we see which teams become the scores to beat ahead of squad number 2 coming this afternoon. Medal round will be live this evening on Bowl TV as well, so we hope that you will make plans to join us. Complete schedule of all the events here at the World Championships also available on bowl.com. Hope that everybody who is watching, I see so many of you from different countries, make sure that Bowling Digital is bookmarked as a website that you visit regularly. At these World Championships, incredible video, great photos, recaps every day. Bowling Digital has a full staff here covering the World Championships. And if you love international bowling, you must be a regular visitor for Bowling Digital.
Yeah, I second that, Jason. Herbert does a wonderful job, Herbert Bickle. It's always great to see him. I was out here with the World Senior Championships last week and got to see Herbert. I actually haven't seen him since I've been here the last couple days, but it was great to see him last week. And we always chat about animals. He's a dog lover like I am myself, so we always end up talking about our dogs and how things are going. But yeah, he does a wonderful job with his website, and it really keeps the whole world informed of the goings-on within the bowling community.
Well, we're not covering the World Championships really. Bowl.com is a United States focused site. Bowling Digital covers the world, and so really that's a fantastic service that they provide, a great niche, and Herbert and Flavio Beat are here working hard this week, delivering great content, and certainly is something to make sure that everyone's keeping an eye on.
So to keep you a little abreast of the standings in terms of the top of the leaderboard this game, Canada's not too far away, and they're bowling a pretty good game to start. The leadoff bowler, Isabel, has 2-teen going through 7 frames. Samantha has 220 going through 7 frames, and Caroline has 2-teen. So they're on about a 650 or 660 clip right now through 7 frames. So put a few more doubles together towards the end of that game, and looks like they're going to at least give themselves a chance going into the last game.
Yeah, they need to probably at least be in third to have a realistic chance. And I don't know if that's...
Yeah, it's so hard to tell with the different
possible.
with the different scoring paces of the patterns. It's hard to tell. Now, conversely, the Korean team, who switched down to the low end, the leadoff bowler, who was bowling unbelievable, she was 106 over after 2 games, is struggling this game with only pacing 170 going into the 10th. She's on a strike in the 9th, so she can strike out in the 10th for 195, but with a spare in the 10th, will only bowl 170. Now, the second bowler is pacing 2-teen right now, so she can strike out for 240, and the anchor bowler is on a 2-0 pace with a possible 220 if she strikes out in the 9th and 10th. So they were 50, and the second bowler spared in the 9th, so she can no longer bowl 240. She's only at a 220 max, 2-teen pace. So if they just throw some strikes in the 10th and not doubles, they're only going to bowl right about 590 this game. So that would mean Canada on their 660 pace through 7 frames would make up that 57-pin difference that we saw going into this game. So Canada's in position to make a run and lead this squad, and
that would be huge. I mean, we see that the Korea team that's bowling later today, really put up some big scores relative to the competition on the short, and they're also a very experienced and talented trio. So you have to figure their odds-on favorites have of a good shot. And now how the spinners will compare the Chinese Taipei team relative to the rest of the teams on the medium length, who knows? That's one of those beautiful things about having the spinners involved. Is it's very hard to forecast how they're going to measure up relative to the traditional styles.
Yeah, we're not sure about that one. I would almost say the exact opposites of the spectrum right now, at least in terms on the women's side, would be the United States teams and the spinner teams. Mm-hmm. If you could combine their scores, they'd be unbeatable. Let the spinners bowl on the short pattern, and let the USA girls bowl on the medium pattern, at least through the first day. But and the anchor bowler for Korea has opened again, so she can only strike out in the 10th for 204. So that brings them down into the 580 pace range. If they just go spare strike in the 10th, all of them, they can still strike out for 620, which would make the Canadian team have to work a little bit coming down the stretch here. But if they just throw some strikes and spares in the 10th, the Canadian team looks like they've already made up all those pins they need to make up, and they just need to stay clean and maybe throw one double or so coming down the stretch here in order to lead this squad.
This is here for the taking for Canada. See off camera, Caroline is up and has a chance to double.
Yeah, that's a big shot on a strike.
Looks like she got it.
Looks like
so
she got it, yeah.
LaGrange doubles in the 8th, and so every shot is big now as you get towards the end and the clock starts to tick. But it seems like Canada has a shot to do it again here in trios.
Yeah, all you can do is lead your squad, and then if for some reason
the chips fall where they may.
If chips fall and all 4 teams, but I don't believe has happened yet, but I believe a lot of the events have had 3 teams from one squad or the other. whether it be the morning squad or the afternoon squad, whichever one it was. But I don't think we've had a squad yet where all teams have come off of one particular squad. So if they lead their squad, they're, you know, the past would tell you they're in good shape.
Well, this live event on Bowl TV is brought to you by the United States Bowling Congress in conjunction with WTVA. On behalf of USBC, we're thrilled to be able to provide it to you. Certainly feel like it's part of our duty to support international bowling, certainly when an event is here in the States. We enjoy taking Bowl TV on the road to other locations as well whenever it works out. See it as a great thing to highlight, a fantastic international competition for everyone. So pleased to have you with us, and certainly on behalf of USBC membership and USBC leadership, it's our pleasure to be able to be a part of things here at the 2013 World Championships, and love the excitement as we get down towards the end of these squads, Brian, and start number crunching and trying to figure out just what it's going to take to be able to be in position to advance to the medal round. This can be more so on the second squad of the day, but this can be as intense and as emotional as the medal rounds themselves sometimes.
Sure, I mean, some people like to set the pace, some people like to chase a number, but for sure, being on this first squad here, obviously you don't know how things are going to fall out, so there's always that indecision, do I have enough, do I have enough? But in most ways, I think bowling this squad is easier strictly because you don't know the number, and all you're trying to do is throw the best shot you can and take every shot frame by frame. You're not trying to crunch the numbers at this point and say, well, gosh, we need a double here in the 10th. You know, some people thrive on that, and other people just like to, you know, do what they do and let everything take care of itself and just throw the best shot they can. So I'd almost call it, and maybe the not most politically correct term in the world, but call it the squeeze factor. That can sometimes happen on second squads. When people start to see that they're close to the number, the grip pressure on the bowling ball tends to get a little bit tighter, and the shots may not be quite as smooth and executed to the same ability that they were earlier in the day.
Well, Brian, it's great to have you with us to help with the math.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, the Korean leadoff bowler did double in the 10th, which was huge, because 170, she's the only one on a strike in the 9th, so her doubling in the 10th increased her score by 20 pins as opposed to just picking up a single double. So she finished with 195. So if the second bowler and their anchor bowler both double in the 10th, they will bowl 10 over and they'll bowl 614. 614 and 57 pins gets to 671 would be the tie score for Canada. So I believe 672 would be the magic number to beat the Korean team by a pin. And if I'm not mistaken right now, that is roughly right around the score that Canada is at. They may be in the 660 pace range. So it looks like they're probably going to need a double or so depending on what these last two bowlers for Korea does. It looks like the Canadian team's run into a few carrying problems over the last couple of frames. Lots of 9 spares. I see lots of spare balls going towards the 10 pin, which generally means the carry has taken a turn for the worse to finish this game, but they're still in really good shape. Just need to finish out this 9th frame and then finish the 10th as best they can.
Trying to see if anybody else is putting together a big game out here.
I think Sweden would be the team to look at.
Sweden, look, they're doing fairly well. 213,
26 over and
213 and
59. So they can bowl 680. How many pins behind were they from Canada? Or from Korea, I guess? They're 140, so yeah, that's not going to
be able to catch up.
But 680 at least gives them a chance, you know. It's a lot better than what it could be. And the other team is Singapore. The other Singapore team was about 70-some pins behind Canada, so they're going to need about 720. And Caroline struck again in the 9th, so that's huge. That puts her at a 2:30 pace. Yeah, so
Singapore is bowling decent, but not
about 650 right now.
Not
so
huge.
yeah, 650 isn't going to be enough. This is Isabel, leadoff bowler for Canada, just threw the first shot in the 10th. So with a couple doubles here, they'll definitely lock up the top seed. The second bowler for Korea struck out in the 10th as well, so they're doing their part in the 10th frame. But really, right now, it's in Canada's hands. If they can fill the 10 frames here, they're gonna be the leader on this squad.
I'm going to let you talk for a moment, Brian, and I'm going to go see if I can adjust that camera so we can take a look at Canada's last frame here.
Okie dokie. So the Korean bowler struck out in the 10th as well. So they threw all 9 strikes in the 10th frame to finish with 624. So 624, actually my math was off a little bit. So 624 and 57 gets you to 681. So 681 being the magical number for Canada to tie the Korean team. 682 would beat them by a pin. Leadoff bowler went strike 9, so she's going to bowl 2-teen. So they're going to need a few strikes here from Samantha and Miss Caroline to take over that top spot from Korea. And Mr. Jason has switched over that camera the best he can. You can see Isabel on the far left of your screen shooting at her 10 pin to fill up the 10th frame to finish out the game with about 2-teen. 214.
So it's not the best angle, but given that Canada is the team to watch that is closest to us here, we'll see what happens.
Everybody watching at home, please disregard my sort of rambling when it comes to the math, but that's the only way I can really do the math stuff is when I have to talk it out loud in my head.
So Canada on lane 47 and 48 for those of you that are wanting to follow on the live scoring application.
Yeah, so they're going to need a double somewhere. And the count is really close too. So if Samantha doubles here in the 10th, I believe Caroline is just going to need right around 9 spare. But a couple strikes, a double from Samantha. It's a good shot. A strike. Kicked out the late 10th.
Now, did you check back in as Korea finished? So they're in the books.
They threw all 9 in the 10th. Their number was 624. So 624 plus that 57 pins of added lead they had, the bonus pins they had, so to speak, gets that total to 682 would be the magic number for Canada. And right now they are at 14 and 23. 37 over and 57 is 90. So this is a big shot for Samantha. I believe if she strikes here, Caroline would need the first one in good count. If she doesn't strike here, I believe Caroline may need a double to pass the Korean team. And as I've heard you say many, many times, all unofficial, of course.
Yes, it's sometimes when we start trying to do number crunching up here, it's one small miscalculation can throw things off, but And we know that it's really tight to get to the leader on this squad between Canada and Korea after Korea came through with some clutch shots. Now waiting to see if Canada can match.
Yeah, this is a big shot right here.
Second shot in the 10th for Samantha Howe.
Oh,
she
perfect.
buries it.
Perfect. So now let's add 10 to that. So if she fills the 10th here, we're at 447 for the first two bowlers. 447 and 9 spare strike would get them to 83. 47 and 36 would be 683. So if she strikes on the fill here, Carolyn needs 9 spare strike, or 8 spare strike, or 9 spare 9. The 682 is their magic number. So that was a huge double. So Caroline needs 9 spare strike. She needs to fill 19 pins here in the 10th frame. Or 18 pins, sorry.
But of course, working on a double, that count with that first ball will be huge.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, if she gets 7 on her first ball, they can only tie. Or if this fill shot doesn't strike either. So it's really going to come down just to the total pins of the fill balls here. And Korea threw all 9 in the 10th, so they didn't leave a pin out there in the 10th frame.
Well, and just looking back at her score, this
got a hook a little. Oh, 9's huge there. It looked like it could have been 6, but that's huge.
This lane has been the lane that Caroline has had a little bit of problems with. She's been perfect on the other lane. But has twice left.
So now 46. 46, and if she spares, she bowls 236. So 46 and 36, that is 82, my friend, and that is the magic number. So 9 spare strike in the 10th would unofficially, to my O'Keefe math, which sometimes can be good, sometimes can be shaky, but I believe that would put them ahead of the Korean team by 1 pin.
All right.
Strike on the first ball doesn't matter.
Well, here you see her on your screen, Caroline Lagrange, with a huge shot for Canada right here. Leading the squad may very well be the difference in advancing to the medal round or not. 10th frame shot, here it is.
That looks good. Yes, there it is. Yeah, I don't think she ever misses a pocket. So that's it right there.
What a couple of clutch shots there.
So that's going to put him in the 690s, and 624 plus that 57 pins of the 57 pin lead that Korea had is not going to be enough. They made that comeback. The last 2 games they bowled outstanding because they only bowled 580 that first game. So 730 and looks like 690, 770 if she strikes here. That's a huge finish. So definitely the score is just a little bit lower. Not necessarily low, but just lower than the scoring pace that we were seeing earlier when this pattern was out for the double squad.
So a little bit of a sigh of relief, but still, it's never enough when you're the first squad to feel comfortable. Second shot in the 10th.
Yeah, and she might as well get all of them. Like you said, just leading the squad doesn't necessarily mean they're going to advance. So filling up as many pins as they can is going to be key to put a little bit of pressure on the B squad bowlers coming in a little bit later. Tremendous finish, though.
Yeah, Team Canada really rising to the occasion. Canadians like their trios, I guess, huh?
Yeah, maybe Caroline for her newlywed, Mr. Buffo, won the gold medal last night. So maybe a little newlywed husband and wife medals in the trios. They just got married recently, not that long ago.
Great celebration.
That's right. I'm sure. I saw them. I saw the Canadian boys celebrating a little bit last night.
I'm sure they did.
Which was good to see. So this is just to fill it up. They are going to lead the squad, but like we said, no reason to not get as many pins as they can. That's a good place for the 5, I'll tell you that.
Yep, not the best count on that fill shot, but that's okay. terrific finish to the end of squad number 1, 698, the total for Team Canada.
Yeah, so I believe they're going to beat them by 17 pins, I believe.
So a really nice performance. And that wraps things up here for the first squad of the day. Appreciate everybody joining us here on Bull TV. We'll, of course, have the second squad coming up later, so be sure to come back and see us again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jason. I appreciate you letting me come up here and talk a little bit about the combine and talk about the event and score crunch a little.
Brian O'Keefe, glad to have you as always. Thanks for making it a little bit more interesting for us, and thanks to everybody who's watching. We hope you'll join us later in the day for the next squad as well as the medal round coming up this evening. For Brian O'Keefe, I'm Jason Overstreet. We'll check in with you later in the day.